The Love Your Podcast is a combination of humor, science, and real-world experience to help you break the battles with food, exercise, mindset, and your body. From head to toe, inside and out, this podcast has you covered. I'm your host and founder of the Fit Mom Revolution, Julie Stubblefield. Welcome. Hello, beautiful listeners. Welcome back to Love Your Podcast this week. Thanks again for giving me a little bit of space in your ear and maybe even in your heart. This week I want to talk to you about results. It seems to be the thing everyone is always seeking. It could be results with our bodies. It could be results with work that we've put into a relationship. It could be results with our employer. Heck, the results could even be a cake that you bake. But we are a very results-driven society, especially in this day and age, because we want to see some sort of a return on our investment. We want to see, what is this going to bring to me? If I do this, what will I get? If I put in X, Y, and Z, will I be able to have A, B, and C? And we use this approach, looking at results only when, shopping, when picking a meal plan, when picking an exercise plan, and, seeking an employment, working on our relationships, all of that. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, because we want to have kind of an end game in mind. We need something to shoot for. We need a goal, so to speak. That's what keeps us motivated. That's what kind of gets us up in the morning. And the goal can be around anything. If you're motivated to bake a cake, you're going to have to do a certain number of steps to do that, which means going to the store and buying the ingredients, right? The same is true if you want to change your body. There are certain ingredients that need to happen, a mixture, so to speak, in order for your body to change. So we have this loose result in mind, and sometimes it's a very specific result, like a cake, or weighing a certain amount, or losing a certain amount, or being able to look a certain way. But the problem is, we forget that we actually cannot 100% control results. Ever. That is a hard pill to swallow. And I'm going to explain to you why we can't control the results and what you can focus on instead. Let's back it up a little bit. Before we have results, we have to do something to get those, right? So that's great. You've picked a result that you want to have. Let's talk about how you get there. So for this instance, I'm going to talk about results as output. Output is what comes as a result of what goes into said product, okay? So that's output. Output is results. In order to have output, you need to have input. What's input? Input is the food that goes into your body, the exercises that you perform, the effort that goes into a relationship, a conversation, an exchange, or an interaction. It's your attitude towards how you approach everything with your input. It's ingredients into a recipe. It's labor that you put towards a passion project or employment. That's your input. The input goes through a series of changes, right, and creates an output. We can 100% control our input all the time, day in, day out, 365 days a year. You get to control what goes in your body, how you move your body, the effort that you put in, the attitude that you have about it, the exchanges that you have, the words that you choose, the approach that you take with every aspect of your life. Every piece of input that you give, you can control. Always. So take that and look at that for a second. Let's put that under a little bit of a microscope. Knowing now that you can completely control your input, you can view it two ways. It can be incredibly liberating, like, yes, I get to choose, how I eat, how I move my body, how I talk to people, how I talk to myself, how I talk, or how I engage with other people. But you can also see it as being terrifying, because the input affects the output. Can't control it, but it does affect it. And when you get to control all of that input, that means that you have a role in what happens. It's a little bit of pressure. And you can choose to look at it as being stressful or nerve-wracking or extra pressure. Or you can choose to look at it as being liberating and thinking, gosh, I really do get to have an impact with the choices that I make and the way that I live my life. So we talked about input. We've given examples, and we've discovered that you get to control your input all the time. So if you get to control your input, you would assume the next logical step would be you get to control the output, right? Wrong. There are a lot of variables that create output. Let's talk about baking a cake, for example. Apparently I want cake because that's what's on my mind for this episode. When you bake a cake, you put in ingredients like a cake mix if you're not doing 100% from scratch, and that has things like, yeast and flour and all kinds of things, and then you add eggs and butter and milk and what have you. And then you put it in an oven. So you get to control what goes in there, but sometimes maybe an egg isn't as fresh. Maybe that yeast is a little old. Maybe your oven doesn't bake as evenly as you thought it used to. So you're controlling the input, but those results, that output, may not come out to be a perfectly beautiful, mouth-watering cake that you expect it to be. Let's talk about our bodies for a minute. You follow a meal plan to the letter. You eat all your fruits and veggies and your protein, and you're drinking your water, and you got your dietary fats, you're logging those macros, you're tracking your calories. You are on it. You're also following your exercise regimen. Never miss a Monday. Got to get that leg day in. You got to get your cardio. Maybe you're doing 2 days. You're following that plan just like it was written. You've controlled your input. The output may not be what you expect. As much as you can put great things in and on your body may have different plans. Your body may not change at the rate that you want it to. Your body may not shape the way that you hope it will. Your body may take breaks and decide not to change it all for a while, or it may go really fast and change too quickly and cause some harm. You can control the input. You cannot control the output. Think about the time when you've given a gift to someone and you were so excited. You had like this great inspiration and you were so excited to give them that gift, and then they open it and their reaction is kind of low. Not really super excited. Not the same excitement that you expected them to have. And you think, gosh, what happened? What did I do wrong? I was so excited. I thought this would be the perfect gift. You controlled the output. You controlled the input. The output is that person's reaction. You can't control that. You can't control, you can follow all the parenting rules in the book, but that sassy 3-year-old doesn't care. That sassy 3-year-old is that output. You can put in all the perfect parenting input, and that sassy 3-year-old is still going to test those waters. Why? Because you can't control someone else's output. You can't control their reaction. And even though your body belongs to you, 110%, There are all kinds of metabolic functions that are happening on a daily basis that run on their own that you can't specifically control. And that's what impacts the output. So let's summarize here. Input. It's the effort that you put into things. It's the exercise. It's the food. It's the ingredients of a recipe. It's your attitude towards all of it. It's how you interact with people, how you create exchanges, the words that you use. You get to control that. It's pretty liberating. Output, not so much. Even in the most calculated instances, even measuring out ingredients perfectly for a cake, you can still come out with a flop because you can't totally control the output. So why does all of this matter? It matters because we want output. We want it to look a certain way. We want it to feel a certain way. We want that esteemed experience that we've made up in our head or that we've seen pictures of or that we've been told about. And so we put in the input, and then when that output doesn't match what we want, there's that expectation gap, and it sucks. But I did all of this work. I did all of the things that I was told to do. I followed the step. I put all the ingredients in the recipe. I didn't miss anything. Why did it not come out the way it was supposed to? That expectation gap is where we actually spend the bulk of our time scratching our heads wondering, what the heck went wrong? And that can lead to frustration, aggravation and disappointment, and even sometimes misery. And it's what we do in that expectation gap that makes a difference. So I'm not going to go into talking about that expectation gap today because I've just thrown a whole lot of information your way. I'm talking to you about input, talking to you about output. I want this to sit in your brain for just a little bit because it's a different take than how most people talk about how we treat our bodies, how we engage with other people, how we bake a cake. So use the next week to really think about the input that you're putting in and what kind of outputs may have disappointed you in the past, and recognize how those things were out of your control from the output perspective. Next episode is going to be talking about the expectation gap and how to make it not miserable, but actually enjoyable and a thing that we can learn from. I will see you next week. Have you signed up for the 15 for Me challenge? What are you waiting for? Head on over to fitmomrevolution.com and click the 15 for Me challenge tab, or you can click the link in the show notes, or you can just go to fitmomrevolution.com/154me. This is teaching you how to use 15 minutes a day for you. All for you. It's a 5-day free challenge. It's the latest and greatest from Fit Mom Revolution. I would love to have you.